Yeah. Oh, the umu siya. Good morning, welcome. Can you please type yes if you can hear me clearly? Okay, welcome, Sir Adrian. Okay, thank you. We will be starting once we get more participants. Yay, great. Thank you. All right. I hope the rest can join in before we start this webinar. Sir Adrian, where are you from? Where do you teach and what level? All right. Okay. Wow, Nueva Ecija. Hi, Diane. Welcome from Angeles High School. Diane, we're teaching the same level, grade 5, junior high school. Mape, wow, that's challenging. Music, art, PE, and health. Hi, Romina. Welcome to the live webinar. Two more minutes and we will start. I hope there will be more people who can join in so they can begin the webinar from our first discussion. Okay, so hi Paulette. So I think we are more, but as usual, some are shy in joining in or commenting or chatting. That's all right with me, but I hope later if you have questions, you'll find the courage to type it in. So let's begin. I'm Teacher Riza, your webinar host for today for PE Metrics. Okay, hello. I hope everyone's doing great despite the pandemic. We try to cope right with whatever way we can. So this is me, your webinar host. I've been teaching PE for more than a decade in my school, De La Salle Santiago Isabel. So I've handled early years, kindergarten up to 5th grade. Oh no, until 7th grade. All right. So I hope I can share some of what I've known in teaching PE since then. So let's start with this. Why PE metrics? Metrics is just like an anchor on what we're going to talk about this morning. So, of course, everyone was thrown into a challenge of teaching PE in the new normal. So, we will now be teaching PE in way too different than what we've used to be. Okay. This year, it's going to be distance learning. How do we do that? How do we address skills? How do we teach concepts? How do we make sure that our kids will understand what are we teaching even if it's through distance learning? Because we all know that we are facing diverse realities. My reality is not the same as your reality, but we will try to cope together. So let me go through our goals for the day. Of course, we'll know the specific skills you will assess or teach or let your students know. You'll identify or we will identify together appropriate physical activities for home-based learning. And then we'll know how to set criteria for your assessments. And then if we still have time and if you're up to it, we will use Flipgrid app to share webinar thoughts. So I'll share more about the Flipgrid app later, specifically on how to use it. So let's start. What's appropriate PE for home-based distance learning in the context of activities, PE activities? So before, we prepare activities for our class instruction. Now it's going to be home-based learning or home-based distance learning. So how do we go through that? How do we address the different factors that will affect teaching PE for distance learning? So I've just summarized my thoughts into four important things. First one is it has to be safe. Why safe? Because different students will have different situations at home. So we teachers should think of activities that would somehow let them move and perform it, but still be safe. So how do we ensure safety? Of course, you have to backtrack, learn or know what's their present situation. Then from there, draw out what would be appropriate for that particular situation of your student, because each one will have a different particular situation, and our goal is to bridge that gap and come up with an activity that will somehow still give them the chance to be active, to perform physical activities in such a way that there's still equity. Everyone is still doing the same thing, learning the same skill, but in different realities or different situations. So how do you make sure that it's safe? As a teacher, so we make sure that if we're teaching them a skill, make sure you provide video demonstrations always go for quality than quantity. So the quality matters most. How they perform it, is it is it the correct way? So because practicing safety or observing safety will really limit or avoid or not cause injury to our students. So how do we make sure it's safe? So first, you have to provide movement cues via video demonstrations, photos, or you provide movement mechanics through photos with labels. So it's like you can take a video of yourself and then put in some steps. The ones I'm talking about, will curate all of this in one file and then we'll upload it in the Sharps and Flats page so you can refer to it when the webinar is done. Okay, then let's move on to varied. Okay, varied means several PE activity choices for your students to accomplish depending on their situation at home again. So on the part of the teacher, it's going to be taxing, but if you know what's your end goal, it wouldn't be that hard. So you always provide choices for your students. Like for example, if you're teaching a skill, throwing for example, then the type of material that your students will use will not solely be throwing a ball, a particular ball. What if they don't have that at home? So whatever practicality comes in now into this part of the appropriate PE activities. So what's practical at home? What's at home that they can use to show a throwing skill? What's there that they can use to show learning or developing of this skill? So, and then how can you integrate this in their daily tasks? So, varied meaning can be integrated in their daily tasks, practical, they can use whatever they have at home, because for now, no one would go out and buy particular things for PE. That's not their priority now. Their priority is to survive, food, things like that. If your students have the capacity to buy, then well and good. But we have to always think that it might not be true for all. And then, in the varied and practical, always have the opportunity to modify the activity without sacrificing skill acquisition. So, like for example, if your student would say to you, teacher, I don't have like this. So, would you really opt to not give the opportunity for your student to show it in another way, in another manner? Like for example, going back to throwing, if the reality of your student is they don't have space to throw for a distance, would you assess or would you still include distance in your criteria? So of course, instead of distance, you would go for form quality, accuracy of throwing, accuracy of the hand, the body position, the feet position, things like that, but not anymore for distance if it's not possible for the reality. And then, so we've covered safe, varied, practical. Last one, or the most important one, it has to be relevant, because if students cannot relate to it, they wouldn't find the meaning of doing such activity in your class. So what's relevant now in our new normal reality? So is relevant still doing the same thing that we did in the classroom? Of course not. It has to be something that they can relate on without then again sacrificing what you want them to learn, what you want them to acquire, what skills do you want them to acquire, what concepts do you want them to learn. So for example, if in this new normal, it's really proven that being active, having that strong immunity is supported by being physically active. So how do you encourage your student to get physically active that's relevant to the reality? So if their reality is, being active through doing household chores, through doing errands, whatever is that, it can be at home, it can be for their family, then allow that to happen. But make sure that still safety is observed. For example, exercising. So we encourage our students to exercise or practice physical activity for 60 minutes a day because that's the recommended time of being active. So how do we make sure that it's safe? You watch out for pre-existing conditions of your students to avoid injury. And then make sure that the movements or exercises that they will do, you have built it up already. Do not introduce something without showing the proper form of doing it, because then again, injuries might happen because we are not there to give feedback right away. So, giving feedback, we'll discuss that in the next slide. Then, what activities now are most relevant for our students? So, these days, I'm familiar with dance challenges, TikTok, exercise or workout challenge. We may encourage them to join. But then again, you have to make sure that the ones that they're doing are still anchored to your end goal of what you're going to be teaching for this school year. Because if you're just going to let them join anything that's relevant or what's in, and then it doesn't support your end goal, then you lose a particular activity for nothing. It doesn't support anything that you want them to learn, whatever skill it is. So be wary of the activities. It doesn't mean it's the in thing we will do it. Remember that we have to have purposeful activities that's anchored to your end goal. Because your end goal is really what's moving you forward to whatever skill you're teaching. So, some activities to practice for this new normal in teaching PE for home-based distance learning. So, this one is a curated activity from PE teachers I follow in Twitter. So, I would just show you a quick video of this. All right. Let me know in the chat box if it's working. So this is a 4-spot skill challenge. This is good. I'll play the video afterwards. I'll discuss it first. Okay, let me check. One moment there. I'll play it afterwards. So as you can see, it doesn't require much of your space. You only need 4 corners. I'm sure everyone at home has that 4 corner. So uh, do you see the video? Or can you view it? Let me check. All right. Yes, thank you. So, let me go through first. So, this is a 4-corner challenge. So, I'll let you view and then let's discuss how we can adapt it to our new reality. Were you able to see it? Oh, no. Oh, I know, guys, because I'm only sharing my slides, not the Google Drive video. Okay? So, so sorry. Yeah. So, I'm sorry about that. I'll just share to you the video. No audio. All right. No. Thank you. Thank you for all your feedback. Uh, I'm going to give you access to that after the webinar. I'll give the link to you now here in the chat box so you can view it on your own. All right, that's the link. Now, but you have to log in with your Google. Use your uh, edu.ph account. All right, now I'm not sure if this is open to anyone with the link. Let me just, okay. Anyone in the internet can find it already. So you can view it, guys. It's already posted there. Thank you. Ayun, Sir Adrian says there's audio. So going back, so the four corner challenge it's simple. It's just basically a square, then you put task in each corner. So in the video that I've shared but you were not able to view, it says there it assigned a particular skill. So identify your specific skill, the top four skill you will be going to teach this school year, and then you can assign that in each particular square. In that particular video, a lot of skills were integrated or taught. So there's cardiovascular for the jumping jacks, there's balance, there's eye-hand coordination when a child has to throw a ball and clap, there's dribbling, and there's kicking. So you see, even if you have the small space at home, you can still utilize that to teach a specific skill. You know, being physically active without having not enough space should not constrain us when we do physical activities. There are so many ways to do movements that doesn't need a lot of space, except when you're moving for distance. That's when you require a lot of space. But when you're performing dance, exercise, um, practicing a specific skill, it doesn't really have to be a big space like we used to have in school. Just a minimum amount of space that will give the opportunity for our students to practice that particular skill, that would be enough. So I think we are all familiar with the tic-tac-toe. It's a traditional game but adapted to uh, physical education skill acquisition. So in this particular game, students played tic-tac-toe by doing bottle flips. So whoever flips the bottle and makes it stand runs and puts its mark on a specific space on the tic-tac-toe until they are able to complete a diagonal, vertical, or horizontal line. So you can see in this task, a lot of skills can already be um, integrated. So if you're teaching this in the lower grades, you can integrate line concepts already. Oh, sorry. I'm lagging. I guess I'm lagging. So let's see. Okay, am I still clear? right now before I proceed to discussing more of tic-tac-toe? Can you reply yes if I'm still clear to you? Okay. I'll wait for your reply if I'm my audio is clear or I'm okay there. Thank you, Miss Diane. So, shall we proceed? Miss Jane, I'm sorry if the connection is choppy for you. Um, I'm not sharing anymore about the video. I'm discussing already activities that we can adapt to our new reality in teaching PE. So most of us is familiar with tic-tac-toe game. So, of course, the ever reliable obstacle course. So this obstacle course is already in the shared Google Drive folder. So, of course, you will say once you see the video, oh, because they have a big house. So, adapt the obstacle course to the reality of our students. Let them create their own obstacle course that shows the skills you want them to learn and acquire. It remember in teaching PE for home-based distance learning, it doesn't have to be the same for every student anymore. Each student will have to modify, give them the opportunity to show it in a way that's relevant to them and practical. That's our new normal now. It has to be relevant, practical, varied, most of all safe. So, I'm sharing my screen. It is still shared to you. Now, we move forward to, all right. Please type in yes if you're viewing this slide already. Brain-based exercises. Hi, Miss Edita. I think my screen is shared. Everyone can see them. All right. Okay. So, another way, so in the new reality, our kids will be at home. We do not know how they're, organizing their day. So, in class, we have the motivation to prepare their body to do physical activities. We have the warm up exercises. But at home, even if we have that particular set of activities for them, they may opt not to do that. But let's make sure that their brains are ready for learning. By integrating brain based exercises, we try to help our kids get ready for learning, whether it's for PE or for any other subjects. So, when they're at home, no one, in reality, no one may be with them or someone may be with them while they're doing the task. So let's make sure and make them realize the importance of being active. You know, being active for 2 minutes will boost the brain to get active and be ready for learning. So, what are those exercises that really, support the brain? So, I've shared here two movements, very, very easy movements. Heel touch, but it crosses the midline. When we say crossing the midline, that means the left and the right side part of your body is connected, whether by your hands, of course, normally it's really hands and foot or feet. So in this particular slide, heel touch, so your right hand will touch the left heel, and then opposite, left with the right, left hand with the right heel. So if the kids are going to continue doing that for 1 minute, then chances are the brain is, we wake up the brain so that it's ready for learning. So there are other ways to, or other exercises that will increase brain functions or brain activity or brain activeness. So we will not go through it, so we will have enough time to discuss more of the way we're going to guide our students during the assessment process or during the feedbacking or during the learning process. Okay, so brain based, it's really something that we believe in because I believe specifically that when the brain is ready to learn, then it will understand more of the concept. It will, uh, I forgot what's the specific term, but the brain can really absorb the concept, the skill, if it's primed for learning. So I'm not sure if you would agree with me on that, but I really believe that if the brain is ready, then the body will be ready as well. So let's move on. This is one of the challenges that we are really going to be facing hard this home-based distance learning PE. What are we going to assess? When are we going to assess it? Why are we assessing it? And how should you assess it? So of course, we're all familiar, right, with formative and summative assessments. So formative, it's something that's happening at the moment, during. Okay, summative, it's really the end goal, the product. What have they acquired? How can they show it to you? Uh, how did they understand the concepts and the skills? So, going through that motion of formative, notice that I put in feedback in the middle. Why? Because even if you give loads and loads of activities for formative, if any of your students didn't get any feedback from all of those tasks, then chances are the ones that they've been doing, which you did not give feedback on, they will just keep on repeating if there were mistakes. So you lose the chance of improving something that could have been improved prior to them doing the summative. So, for formative, what activities are you going to do that will lead to your summative? Always remember that the formative supports the summative. The formative is not something that you just give just because you want it. The formative is something that you provide, you create opportunities for them to be successful for their summative assessment. So, let's say, for example, your summative at the end of this term is to be able to create an individual exercise routine because we believe that being physically active at this time of pandemic will help them be protective I mean, be protected with acquiring the virus. So having a strong immune system through physical exercise. So that's your summative. So how do you provide activities during the formative stage that will lead to that? So of course, if we look into the DepEd curriculum guide, so assesses physical activities, engagement in physical activities. So the physical activities that your students engage in, so remember we draw it out right a while ago when I asked you to know the realities of your kids. How do they get physically active in their day? What tasks or daily chores they do at home that falls into being physically active? Now, for the formative, how do you support the individual physical exercise or individual exercise routine for the summative? So, looking into the curriculum guide, you have to teach health related fitness components and skill related fitness components because those are the main components of the exercise routines or being physically active. You have to understand what's health related fitness components, how does it affect you personally, you being active. So, am I still making sense to you, teachers? Yes? Okay, so for formative, since your summative, I've been repeating this, is to do individual exercise routine. For formative, then you can introduce the health related fitness components. What falls under cardiovascular exercises or endurance exercises? What falls into muscular endurance exercises? What falls into muscular strength? What falls into flexibility? So make sure to provide activities for each part of that health related fitness component. When your students are able to perform one particular exercise with correct form with through your feedback, then you have prepared them well for their summative. Why? Because later on we will talk about setting criteria. So, what we have identified. When, meaning the process. How, meaning what activities you're going to provide. Then why? Because it's part of your end goal. It's your summative. It's what you want them to learn at the end of your uh, class or lesson. So formative provide activities that would lead to summative, giving specific exercises through video demonstrations in their formative. Now, maybe in day one, you'll introduce all the components of health related, and then in the next days, if it's asynchronous, meaning you're not meeting, you can give them choices or choice boards. An example of a choice board is already into your Google Drive link that I shared to you a while ago. So choice board, you've prepared lots and lots of activities that they will just be choosing on whenever they're ready to uh, do the activity. Make sure that when you're doing the activity, it doesn't have to be linear. It can be um, embedded or integrated for whatever task you're doing. It's better if we integrate skills right away rather than teaching them one at a time. So students can understand that, oh, when I'm doing jumping jacks, I'm already doing a cardiovascular activity. So whether you're teaching the proper form of jumping jacks, you've already let them understand that jumping jacks is a cardiovascular activity. Or like when you challenge them to do plank for 30 seconds, you just don't challenge them to hold their breath or to, but you teach them already that they have to apply muscular strength to be able to hold it for 30 seconds, things like that. And that How do you give feedback then? So feedbacking is very important because we are not there to correct their form. We cannot see them. We cannot call out their names or call them that, oh, this is the way to do it. So a while ago I mentioned video demonstration. So what if they don't have that? Then you provide photos. And then how do you then know that they were really performing it, or they were doing the exercises or the activities, appropriate activities that you've planned for them to do to prepare them for the summative? So I have here an example. So for summative, individual exercise routine. So for formative, you can ask them to do daily exercise logs. You can even uh, have a exercise or workout buddy if that's possible in your reality, because of course then again we would want to safeguard the safety and privacy of our students. So I've really noted there to make sure that when you use a particular application, make sure to follow the policy of your school. Clear out with your heads first, school heads. So note that you have to set criteria standards at the beginning of the task activities so that your students will also understand what they're preparing for and why are they preparing it for. So, formative, we have to do daily exercise logs. We have to do, or they have to do video responses. So, in my experience, personal experience, when I did this last year, uh, all my students were able to do video responses because we have been practicing it already. So, in your case, you may have to go through it slowly. Then, how do you then check their progress for feedback? So, ways to give feedback or check students' progress. So, I've included here some of the things that I think you are mostly familiar with. So, Viber has now a capacity to do group calls up to 20 students. So, maybe you can, for your synchronous class, you can maybe invite 10 and then another 10 for the next one, so that you can really give clear feedback on how they perform or clarify thoughts, concepts that they have misconceptions on. Then this one, TikTok, everyone's in TikTok. So you have to make sure to follow your school policy on the use of these apps. So some schools allow, some schools do not. So do know the culture of your school. So are you allowed to use certain apps? So Facebook, I'm aware everyone is. So uh, will Facebook be more manageable to you or Messenger? I knew my niece who's studying in the province, and they have been doing distance learning since March. So their form of communication is through Messenger. So all the all the exercises, all the tasks that the teachers want them to accomplish is through Messenger. So really find a way where you can give feedback that would be convenient for both of you and your student. So, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Seesaw. Seesaw is a learning journal. Typically, it's somewhat like Facebook, but it's for school. So, I've really used this in my class since 2017 because there's a great connection between parents and the teacher and the student. So whatever feedback I give to my students, their parents can read. If you're not comfortable with that, you don't have to really go through that. So work on your comfort, not your comfort, but work on the ones that you are most confident on. Okay? Then Instagram is a platform that really also encourages being active, but make sure that you're using, these are all tools to give feedback and progress. They are not the be all and end all of learning for the students. Okay? It's just your way. Then Flipgrid is something that I'm really passionate about in using PE, because it gives me a clearer way of getting responses from my students and checking how they're really working on it, on a particular skill I'm using. So, for example, daily log, cardiovascular exercises. You can post something like that, and then everyone responses there. So you can really check each student's form, how they perform each skill or movement. Like for example, in our exercise, so you can have a cardiovascular challenge, muscular endurance challenge, then muscular strength and flexibility, and you can even ask a student to lead the challenge, and then everyone responds or replies, and you can even ask them to modify each movement, because not all students will perform movements as how we imagined it to be, because there are conditions that some students cannot may not be able to use their hands for muscular strength. So what's the other way to show muscular strength aside from push-ups? There are various ways to do it. It's up to us on how to provide activities that would really support their summative assessment. But then again, make sure to check progress. Do not assess the summative of your kids without giving a single feedback. That has been my biggest failure when I was teaching or learning to assess. So sometimes I would assess or include parts of skills that I have not even given feedback on, and then I've included it in the assessment. So that's just too unfair for our kids, especially at this home-based distance PE learning. So let's make sure that our activities are flexible and relates to the reality of our students. Okay. How do I set then a criteria for assessment? So, going back to our example, the individual exercise routine. So, some of us, so if you're the teacher, how would you set a criteria for an individual exercise assessment? Okay, can you share some of your criterias in the chat box? Let's see. How would you assess an individual exercise routine? What criterias? What criterias will you include? How would you set a criteria for an individual exercise routine? Okay, don't be shy. Hello, everyone. Okay, anyone who would try to contribute for setting a criteria? Don't be shy. We're all learning together. My criteria would be applicable to your criteria. I might learn as well from you. This is that's learning for us. I'm not the sole source of knowledge here. Okay. How would you set a criteria for your summative assessment for an individual exercise program? Mm-hmm. So going back, so your criteria should be specific. What are you assessing in that exercise? Are you assessing their form, how they do it? Are you assessing their arm positions, the proper way to do in a jumping jacks, a plank, or the throwing the ball of the for example, you're teaching target skills. How what specific part of target skills will you be assessing? Is it going to be only the hand? Will you include the feet position? Will you include the body position, the shoulder? So be really specific so that your students will also work on it. Then skill based. So for skill based, how they execute the skill. So like for example, if they're going to do burpees, for example, so what's the proper position for burpees? What's the arm position? What's the feet position? What's the body position? What are the how will they do it? The complete execution of burpees. How about flexibility? Is it going to be dynamic stretching or the other way? Then concept based. How were they able to apply that skill in that exercise? Was it done? Were they able to show, for example, if you've included skill related fitness components, was there was there a show of reaction time? Was there power? Was there balance? Was there coordination? So things like that. So all of these criteria will affect the performance of your student. That's why you have to set criteria for your assessment at the start of the activities before you even give those formative activities. Am I still making sense to you, everyone? Yes? Hi. Wow, thank you, Sir Adrian. Yes, exactly. Form, execution. Diane, very good. Accuracy of movements. How do you then quantify that accuracy? The accuracy to you might not be the accuracy for me. So be very specific. What's the accuracy? Accuracy of what? Accuracy of hand movements, accuracy of feet movements, accuracy of body. So things like that. Be very specific. Execution, presentation, yes. Thank you, Miss Badet. Presentation. What do you mean with presentation? So you have to clearly specify to your students what type of presentation are you expecting them to do. Execution, how do you want them to execute? Of course, proper form. What is proper form for you? Things like that. So make sure to be very specific in every criteria that you will give to your student, because this has been my challenge also. All of the examples of the rubrics that we're discussing about, like execution, performance, accuracy, presentation, you can find it here in music, movement, and literacy strategies and resources. So if we've created there a sample rubric for a Monopoly game about physical activities. So yes, it's a group in Facebook. I'll let you join in later. Then moving on, so that we still have time to give feedback or question and answer. So wrapping up all of this. So for your PE matrix this morning, You have to make sure to set criteria of for your assessment at the beginning of the term. Backwards planning, know first what you want to teach and assess for this term or for this school year. Less is more, okay? So be specific with your criteria, whether it's skill based or concept based. Make sure all the components, if you're looking for accuracy, you have specifically wrote or communicated to your students what accuracy would look like, the execution, how does execution would look like when it comes to different parts of their body, or for a particular skill, if it's throwing, kicking, um, catching, or for exercise. Then make sure you give feedback for your formative assessment before they even go to summative assessment. Then make sure your activities for home-based distance PE learning, even if we are facing a very big challenge, it has to be relevant, practical, varied, and safe. So that has been our PE metrics. Manage your expectations as we go through this new normal. Make sure to engage your students. Try out new strategies. There's nothing wrong. If it fails, then improve. Revise your plan as needed. Integrate other skills. Students will understand more if things integrate. Collaborate with someone. It will help you with your plan. It can be your co-teacher. It can be anyone from your school or somebody that you know with. And then most of all, stay positive however challenging things may get. If you ever need help, I'm just here. You can contact me. But for now, Q&A first. Any questions? Because in this new normal, we have to work together with the school, the parents, for the good of our students. Teachers, yes. Thank you, Miss Yoy Santino. Number of reps, is that really important for you? Quantity more than quality? Oh, if you're following the FIT principle, frequency, intensity, time, then I agree with that. Hi, Miss Jim Garcia, SDO Antipolo. Thank you. Questions? Anyone? We can share how would you deliver your PE class on a distance learning model? Okay, were you able to understand what's your aha moment? Can you share it with us? You can type it in while I'm sharing to you our group. So, share your voice, empower your students. Join us here in Sharps and Flats Ed, both in Instagram and Facebook. So you just choose your platform. You don't have to follow everything. But if I may suggest, when you click on Sharps and Flats Ed Facebook, do not click like only. Please click follow, because once you follow, you will be able to join the group, the Music and Movement Literacy. Okay, so you have to really request to join the group, but the feed that we post in Facebook, you can see it in your timeline. Okay, let's see. Okay, Miss Badet, how can I encourage the students to do the activities? Because some are just using CP playing games. All right, so I think, Miss Badet, you have to connect first with the parents. Okay? the parents should set standards for their kids. Like for example, if your class is at 8 to 8:30, just for 30 minutes, then parents should really commit to you to support physical activity. We have, I think, before we can let our students get active, we have to educate and orient our parents first that movement is an integral part of life. And if your kids are just going to be using their CP for playing games, then it doesn't serve its purpose. Okay, but there's another side of the story for that. If you're if you're like for example you made a choice board, right? There's an example in our activity, creating choice board. Then you can use that CP. Instead of playing games, student will create games in their using their cell phones with all the physical activities that they want to be included in that game. You see? So turn that negative thing into positive thing. I mean, use it for our advantage. If kids are into CP, how can we use that for our advantage? So, incorporate games. So, a lot of our students play Minecraft. How can they design a playing area using Minecraft? Things like that. So, you really have to know your platform, but don't be overwhelmed with too many things, because when you go to Google now, there's a lot of things that's interesting. But then again, even if it's interesting, we have to make sure that it still is anchored to our content standards or performance standards in DepEd if you're from public school. So that's my 2 cents on your question. I hope I was able to clarify some of it. Mastery of the skills, Sir Reggie. Yes. Are there other more questions? Okay. Okay. If you're focusing on games this term or this particular school year or any part of your PE classes, so one thing that you can do is to learn the environment. Second, play the game yourself. Look into skills, but since we know teachers, we have a lot of documents to focus on, to accomplish things like that, then know one thing that would really be of benefit to you and for your students. Can I do collaboration activity with my students? Of course. Definitely. That should be encouraged nowadays. Collaboration. I like that. You can collaborate with your students anytime, because once students are empowered, they're really 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 inspired to do more. Of course, if they can't do it individually, they can have let them do it in a group. A lot of people are doing Zoom exercises now because some kids are really, encouraged when they see someone they know. You see in TikTok, a lot of kids do a duet or join the challenge because they feel great doing it. So go ahead. Any more questions? Okay, join. Yeah. Be a part of our community. The link of our Facebook is over here. I'll post it also here in our chat box so you can join. Okay. Oops. Sorry. This is the link. All right. That's true. Students work in a group, but their assessment is still individual based on the criteria that you've set. Any more questions, participants? Whatever questions you have, let's try to answer them together because that's what really be learning all about this school year. What if still the students don't perform the activity given? What if still the student don't perform the activity given? Then yes. All right. So if a student doesn't perform the activity given, then you really have to know what's the reality of that student. Is it just plainly being lazy, or they are not motivated, or what would make them what would motivate them to move? So start with their interest, because when a student does something that's of interest to them, they will really have to do it. Or another way, contact the parents, know from the parents why is their child not participating, not performing, things like that. Because chances are, if we involve the parents, their kids would really be pushed to participate, engage, and perform. That's right, Sir Adrian. Give them alternative activities. Yes. If you would like an access to references of rubrics for group performance or group assessment or anything that we've been talking about here in PE Metrics, please join the link I posted in our chat. This one. Okay? Please join that in because you will not be able to access these rubrics or references if you're not in the group. It has to be shared to the people. Yes, Miss Dayan, to share it with the people who are willing to learn and share as well. Yes, Dayan, that's I agree with you on that. Parents can also perform with the child. Yes, definitely we should encourage family involvement in PE because PE nowadays, for our new normal, it's a family physical activity. It's not anymore with your student only. It has to be anyone at home. It can be if they have their yayas, their brothers, their sisters. It can become an opportunity for family to move together, to get active together, and to get fit together. Thanks for pointing that out. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in. I can stay for 2 more minutes if you have still clarifications. Thank you for spending your Saturday morning with me. It's great to interact with all of you and share what I know about PE. Hmm? All right. If we will do Zoom, would you be interested to join? Can you please type in yes if you're still with us? And what's your preferred time? Is it afternoon? Is it same as this, 9 a.m.? Because I know most of us are mommies and daddies also. We have other responsibilities at home. But thank you really for spending this hour or this morning with Sharps and Flats with me, Miss Risa. Uh-huh. Thank you, everyone. I think we were not able to. Wow, Ordaneta, Miss Mary Grace. Sambuanga, wow, Miss Eda. Wow, Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao pala ito. Finally, please, please, please go to the group, Music and Movement. I still want to keep communicating with all of you. Miss Paulette, Miss Amy, Sir Edgar, Sir Christopher, Miss Rochelle, Diane. There's a lot of you. Sir Reggie, Miss Lori, Miss Imelda, Miss Garcia from Antipolo, Miss Centino. All right. I think may sample module ba kayo sa PE? For what grade level, Miss Badet? We don't have a sample module, but we do have a framework for the activities, rubrics, things like that. I have my own module. I have my module for the ones I used last year. What if the child do not have access to the internet? How can we help them? Oh, there's messaging, right? You can text message the parent, you can send out a packet, things like that. So, if there's no way to print it out, then maybe you can just handwrite it. Whatever is possible, because not all learning can happen in the internet. So, what are the other ways that can we provide for our students who do not have access? Equity. We have to make sure everyone has access to education, physical education, whatever it is, in whatever way we can do. So, really, PE, you don't need access to the internet because actually you do PE every day. You do movements every day. So, that's really particularly physical activities. It's just that we use the internet for feedbacking, for checking their progress. But if they don't have that, then we should not that should not hamper or hinder their learning. Sorry, Miss Diane, I just read it now. Can you provide framework for senior high PE? Framework is there? Uh, what do you mean framework? How you're going to teach it? How? Because if your framework lens is integration, then we have that already in our music and movement group. Thank you, Miss Imelda, Miss Edgar. I mean Sir Edgar. Sorry. Senior high PE, you have to know what's in your PE in senior high. What's the end goal there for PE? Sir Joseph. Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Sir Christopher. All right. Last 4 minutes and then I will end our live. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. It has been a wonderful morning. Don't forget your PE metrics for this school year. Stay positive, however challenging things may get. This is Teacher Riza signing off already.